and economist and founder of the Land Banking Group, a company that takes care of the administration of natural capital. Welcome here on the stage. It's not a stage, but welcome. So, your speech.
Thank you, Janine. My dear friend, Enric, what a delight to have you and Christine at Senckenberg. What a privilege to offer some laudatory reflections on behalf of the wonderful Senckenberg team. Enric, your story is very easy. The oceans are large and they're so small all of a sudden. And we human beings, we are so small and we can be so large all of a sudden. And I've only given a very few minutes here, so let me not spend that on telling what we've heard. So let me not talk about how, as a young boy in Catalonia, you were drawn to the ocean and you were finding brown and green and red algae more interesting than the discotheques. Let me not talk about how you have been that successful researcher, the professor at Aix-Marseille and at Scripps Institution. Let me even not talk about how you founded pristine seas and saved 7 million square kilometers on this planet for good. And let me not talk about how you have actually turned to one of the most authoritative voices for the protection of the oceans and for nature. Let me instead explore 3 questions. What does that work say about you? What does that work say to us? And what does that work say to the enlightenment mission of Senckenberg? Now, about you. You are living this unlikely Humboldtian life in the middle of the 21st century. And like Humboldt, sort of you are driven. You are driven by so many forces, and here they are. You are the rationalist. You have looked at the data, you have looked at the facts, and you took a decision. I mean, just think about that, giving up a prestigious research position in order to start acting, to stop writing the obituary for the ocean, and to start issuing birth certificates for safe havens of nature. You looked at the facts, the rationalist. Well, then there's the Explorer. I was, last Sunday night, I was in New York at the Explorers Club. And you know it well, there's also some brass of you there. I was there with your and my good friends, Sylvia Earle, with Johan Rockström. They're all sending their regards and congratulations. And those of you who have been in the Explorers Club, it's full of relics and artifacts of all those explorers. Heyerdahl, Amundsen, Hillary, Armstrong. And if you think about it, what they really tried to do, they tried to push the space and expand the space of human possibility at that time through their exploration. Our space of possibility in this century will be limited by planetary health, and protecting the safe and the just operating space on this planet, that is your South Pole. Now, but you're also this universalist. You're so multilingual, I mean, beyond your Catalan roots. You can actually tell this story so well, and I've seen it. I've seen you convince the Vatican. I've seen you convince the Davos business crowd. I've seen you talk to the White House chief's scientific advisors. And I've also seen you to talk to the Norwegian or to the Tongan prime ministers. By the way, it was the high-level panel for the sustainable ocean economy where we, and also Christine, got to know each other more deeply. Now, you're this universalist and you find language to tell the story. You find it through aesthetics. Your films are a marvel and you should watch them all. Through narrative. The book, The Nature of Nature, you should read it. It's the book you should really read. You could feel when he wrote the foreword, King Charles was moved by the book. He was moved. You tell it through political ideas. Your 2019 page, A Global Deal with Nature, actually I think if we were starting to trace some of the linguistic isotopes that you set into the European Green Deal, which was 2019 and 20, you would find some of that, and you should be proud. Well, and then of course then you find it through the language of science. All the papers, all the publications. My favorite one is the spawning behaviors of the Mediterranean dusky grouper, of course, but there's also other ones. And I think your 2021 Nature publication of protecting the ocean for climate, biodiversity and food is a seminal one. And it actually proves wrong everything that every finance minister will ever tell you, that we first have to fix the economy to afford fixing nature. It's exactly the other way around. First, we have to have thriving nature, otherwise we don't have an economy at all. In your paper, you're making such a wonderful, deeply researched, data-rich point. If we were actually extending the fraction of the ocean that is protected from currently 2.7% to something like 21%, everything would get better. Climate would get better, carbon storage, biodiversity, of course, would get better, but also fisheries and food and human livelihoods would get better. And that relationship stays stable all the way towards 71% protected, and it's only afterwards that we have to make sacrifices. So nature is our benefit, is our friend, almost all the way. Now, this is you as the universalist, but then there's also you as a humanist. Creating MPAs, marine protected areas, that is a business of understanding that there are traditions, inherited rights, that there are geopolitical interests. And I remember you talking about these conversations in Russia, in the South Pacific, in South America. And every time you need to be someone who's able to listen, and who's able to have empathy and able to understand. And that's what you did. But then you're also the optimist. I know you well enough to understand that there have been major setbacks, and every single one of them would have been good enough for you to stop and do what we all do, to start caring just for your own business, and you didn't. Now, and finally, you are a real person. If you are in an Oxford pub with Christine, you, Justin, sometimes Sonia, and you observe it, then you know there's not one Enric, there's two Enrics. One Enric is all about Christine sees, and one Enric is all about what Christine sees. You're so fortunate to have someone at eye level in your life. The real secret source, someone who's fully up to the game. And dear Senckenberg, can we please introduce an award, not for researchers or achieved singles, can we actually do that for couples? If we had done this way, you would have won this prize, Christine and Enric, by a much bigger margin than you have anyway. Now, thank you. Let me quickly reflect on what your work says to us. I mean, you came to Frankfurt. Frankfurt is, by European standard, a financial hub, a financial center, banking. And in banking we asked, what do you have on your bank account? Now here you come to us, and you have essentially been instrumental to protect 7 million square kilometers of this planet, which translates into 7 trillion square meters. Now, it's an interesting question. What makes you richer? To have $1 on your bank account, or to have 1 square meter on your nature capital account? It's an interesting one, and all of you will find very different answers to this question. The one thing that I do know is how economics currently answers that question, and that is a 0 to 1. Yeah? And so perhaps that's a worthwhile thing for us to think about when we take our next material decision. So you came to Frankfurt, and this is how I'm closing, is not just a financial hub. Frankfurt has in fact been one of the cradles of the European era of enlightenment. That was the era of Christian Johannes Senckenberg. So he was inspired in the 18th century. These ideas that were in the air, they were about humanism, rationalism, exploration, about optimism. And there was the thoughts of the Lockers, of the Kants, of the Humboldts, of the Rousseaus, of the Leibniz. They were inspiring what we have around us right now. And they were able actually to bring together a new way, a new compass for this world, because they felt that the context was changing, that the ground was shifting under our feet. And they were finding a new answer to that. If anything of what Lisa's teams, your teams, the Antje's teams, the Senckenberg teams, if you may, Sonja's and my teams, are actually providing now as scientific evidence is true, if anything of that is true, then the context is changing now in a much deeper, in a much more radical way than back then. And it's about us to find the right answer. Sometimes I'm sitting there asking myself, those people back then, did they actually know that they were part of something bigger? That they were passing a threshold, that they were holding very different futures in their hand? And frankly, we don't know the answer, but we do know a few of them did. So congratulations, Enric Sala, voilà, and all.